to the What Bitcoin Did podcast.
Hi there, how are you all? Are you all having a great week? Welcome to the What Bitcoin Did podcast, simply the best Bitcoin podcast in Bedford. I'm your host, Peter McCormack, and today I have an interview with Mike Dudas from The Block. But first, I have a message from my show sponsors. So let's talk about BlockFi. Regular listeners will know these guys, and as I announced last week, they have extended their sponsorship of the podcast, which is super cool. They've got a whole bunch of cool new things to announce soon, so they've extended with me. So thank you so much for doing that, BlockFi. If you are new to the show or you haven't checked out BlockFi, then head over to blockfi.com/whatbitcoindid, where you can find more about their crypto-backed loans, but also follow them on Twitter. Sign up to their newsletter, keep up to date on everything they're doing. They've got so many cool things coming this year. If you are interested in a loan, whether you're looking to pay off a credit card or buy a house, BlockFi helps crypto investors use their Bitcoin, Ether, and Litecoin without selling. BlockFi is the leading crypto to USD lender in the US. They service 47 states and they've got interest rates as low as 7.9%. So visit blockfi.com/whatbitcoindid, where you can find out more about using your crypto without selling. And let's also talk about my other regular lead sponsor, Paxful. Come on, have you checked these out yet? If you're looking to accumulate more Bitcoin, they have the most comprehensive buying options available. They do accept bank transfers, they do accept debit and credit cards, they accept PayPal, they accept Western Union, and if you go onto their website, you'll see they have over 300 different payment options for buying Bitcoin. They are also a true peer-to-peer Bitcoin marketplace. They have a full service escrow system and they offer 24/7 support. These guys are so awesome. Go and check them out. It's paxful.com, which is PAXFUL.com. So let's move on to my interview with Mike Dudas from The Block, who I also love because he is also a Liverpool fan. So we not only been talking about football, but we've been talking for quite a while now. Kind of got to know him, been following what The Block do. And just a note before you listen to this, we actually recorded this before Christmas, but the way the schedule worked, this would have had to have come out on Christmas Day, which I thought was a waste of time. So I've delayed it to this week. So do you know The Block? Have you checked them out? They've definitely changed the game with crypto journalism, from their hard-hitting reporting to their in-depth analysis. Their content has definitely been creating ripples across the whole crypto space. If you're on crypto Twitter, you definitely can't miss it. So many things stand out about them though, from the quality of the team which Mike has recruited to the way they ensure that they have no conflicts of interest with what they do. So I wanted to talk to Mike. I wanted to get him on. I want to discuss the background of The Block, but what their strategy is. And at some point, I'm going to get some of the other reporters from the team on. But right now, you've got the main guy. You've got Mike. If you've got any questions about the show, you know you can reach out to me. And make sure you also follow The Block. There's a whole load of links to their work in the show notes. If you want to support the show, there's a whole bunch of things you can do. If you head over to my website, www.whatbitcoindid.com, there's a support section that explains everything. Also, I want to thank my Patreon top-tier sponsors, Elite Crypto Consulting. They are your personalized trading teacher. Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. Okay, so on to the interview. And as I said, if you've got any questions, you can always reach out to me. My email address is hello@whatbitcoindid.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. So listen, I've been following The Block for a while, following your work, absolutely loving it, but fully recognize that you are very different from every other crypto publication. Throwing hand grenades out there, big stories, big coverage. Tell me about it. What's the strategy? What are you trying to do here with The Block?
So with The Block, we're really trying to bring clean, clear, objective, fact-based analysis, journalism, and research to an ecosystem in which 95% plus of the projects are basically poof. If not in the next couple months, in the next couple years. It's pretty clear to anyone. Everyone was saying 6 to 8 months ago when this idea for The Block first came about, that look, this entire quote unquote asset class is overvalued. But nobody was covering it that way, right? You had CoinDesk and others like literally running BitConnect ads. It's crazy. And mainstream media did not at the time understand the technology well enough, the governance well enough, pretty much anything well enough to report on this accurately. They were just reporting on price, including CNBC, including Bloomberg, and doing it in really short segments. And we feel that, I certainly feel, having worked in fintech at Braintree, at Google Wallet, at Venmo for years, at PayPal, that blockchain and crypto assets are a major significant evolution in how we think about money, how we think about technology and value and digital assets. So I don't think it's like traditional fintech that tends to get co-opted by the big banks in the existing system. I think of it as something that can exist outside of those systems. And that really got me excited. At the same time, was disappointed with the lack of professional coverage in the space and felt like we could play a part as a media and information source of great credibility at helping to highlight the good things and highlight the bad things and really separate the wheat from the chaff.
Right, okay. So you spotted the opportunity. What did you go through to make it a reality?
So basically, it's a people business, right? So much, by the way, of this entire ecosystem is a people ecosystem. We're creating software, we're creating protocols. We're not creating in our business, which is a media, information, research, and analysis business, or in these technology businesses that are being created. It's primarily software driven. And so it's a lot about the people. And so the biggest thing at the block was being able to recruit those people who were best in the world. And best in the world in this ecosystem isn't somebody with 20 years of experience, because nobody has it outside of a handful of folks who were, crypto anarchists in the 90s, right? So what it means is bringing on people who are curious, people who have depth of knowledge and tremendous amounts of energy and are so passionate about this. I mean, our team we have an internal Slack group that we use for a variety of reasons, but we spend, you'll see a message like 22 out of 24 hours of the day on there from somebody on the team. So the energy is palpable. And so recruiting the best people was key. The best researchers, the best analysts, and the best technologists. So we're really excited about where we are. We have a really good team. The output has been tremendous since we actually launched the product in September, and the readership has followed and the attention has followed. And
you said you think 95% is going to go poof. Why is it you think that?
Probably more. So, I mean, that's if we go to like token 5,000 on CoinMarketCap. There's a whole variety of reasons, right? There are people who literally scammed others. So, you have a variety of scams. You have a variety of people who raised money because it was easy to sell tokens, to the public, and oftentimes in ways that are unregulated, and then simply don't have the capability to build what they said they would. I mean, that's probably I'm making up numbers here, but that's a big chunk of projects. Then there are people who believed they could do things and haven't been able to, and have had to shut down. And then you get to the cream of the crop, right? I mean, you have when entities like Consensus that employed 1,000 or so people at the peak are laying off hundreds and hundreds of people with many more to come. That the funding got far ahead of what the technology is capable of. So I think a lot of things that got funded it has so many analogies to the first internet bubble, but will be things that in 10 years an idea might make sense, but today it doesn't. And a lot of it has to do with, cool, you can do this technology thing, but the trade-offs to do it on a blockchain are that it becomes absolutely unusable by consumers or businesses because the interface is just abysmal. So that's a whole other segment of products. And then, the products are actually good and interesting, just a lot of them aren't getting usage. You look at consumer-facing dApps, which was a big use case for Ethereum, outside of, ICO funding and ERC20 tokens, and the dApp, either business or consumer usage simply isn't there yet. EOS has been launched to try to kind of reduce friction and enhance scalability. But again, we're talking. The big question right now for some of these projects is a blockchain necessary, right? And so, for many it's not.
Right. Okay. And you also, you mentioned CoinDesk, and it seems like a number of the other crypto publications and websites, they are reporting in a different way. Do you think some of them maybe this is... Well, I identify probably two reasons. One is a conflict of interest in the bigger group they may be part of. And secondly, is the model they've built, in that I think many of these companies are relying on these crypto projects as a source of income. You know, we've seen that some actually will accept payment for positive stories. Do you think that's why they've not covered it, and you obviously have a different model?
Yeah, I mean, this is very easy to break into groups. So let's start with the mainstream media, right? The mainstream media covers this because it gets a disproportionate amount of clicks and attention, and it's interesting, and it's a class of money as well as a class of technology. But they focus on a general purpose audience and typically don't give the specific thing they're looking at the depth of treatment that's necessary. The Economist is the guiltiest of this. Bloomberg is like occasionally guilty when they put their general purpose reporters on it, but when they put their cryptos reporters on it, they actually do a pretty darn good job. So Fortune has some good folks like Jeff Roberts. So there's some good mainstream media reporting, but I would say in aggregate, it just doesn't go to depth. Then you get I think the area that you were most interested in and focusing on is the CoinDesks, the CCNs, and the Cointelegraph. So let's just use those as the three largest pure play crypto media entities. So CCN and Cointelegraph are the absolute like early Business Insider, just like write every single thing up, aggregate. You don't worry too much about whether it's perfectly like factually accurate or has depth or things are spelled right. And then let's monetize that through, like you just said earlier, ICO ads, and you name any product. I mean, you go on to their homepages or article pages anytime, and you're going to see some really low quality ads. That's the model. Very low cost content, very low quality advertising. And it's just volume, volume, volume. And then they do, as you said, accept sponsored posts that they do denote, but in sometimes not the most transparent way. Then you have actual high quality media, which is an interesting new category. And I'll go back to CoinDesk, but you have a high quality media that some of the new folks like Decrypt Media, who I have great respect for, and Breaker, who I have great respect for. Now, both of those are funded by, so Decrypt is directly funded by Consensus. And so while there's a Chinese wall there and that team has great editorial integrity, it's just hard to operate with that relationship without some doubt, creeping in on the reader's mind, right? But again, what I've seen to date is high quality reporting. Who knows, if stories get killed or other things happen, and who knows what their long-term revenue model is, or if it's just to be sort of patron funded by Consensus in a manner similar to how, the Washington Post could lose money because Bezos owns it. Breaker is another one. I mean, I don't know what the long-term revenue model is there. So it's hard to really comment on what their plans are in the future. But today you would look at them and say, hey, it's going to be a really difficult challenge to establish businesses with either of those models unless they are funded by the projects. And Breaker is funded by a project, Singular DTV, that ICO'd, has, I'm sure, a treasury and can continue to put money into that. And they have connections to New York Magazine as advisors. And so those are the only two that I see doing like quality work similar to us, but the funding model and business model is in question. Lastly, we'll get to CoinDesk. So CoinDesk is a wholly owned subsidiary of Digital Currency Group. So Barry Silber, one of the most powerful, most connected folks in the entire ecosystem, who has his tentacles in so many different businesses, so many different projects. His entity is a 100% owner. Now, CoinDesk has some fantastic editorial talent, both on the pure editor side as well as their journalists. They also and they have great analysts and researchers. So it's a mix. They put out some really good work and they put out some lower quality work, but on balance, they are doing good work. The thing is, their model isn't the journalism, the analysis, and the research. It's the conference. And so to your original question, they make any profit that they make on basically these series of conferences by which it's pay to speak. And so it's pay to attend and it's pay to speak. And we're talking tens of millions of dollars in cumulative gross revenue annually for these sponsorships, for these speaking spots, and for participation in the conferences. So the journalism is meant to drum up interest. So we look at we looked at that landscape, and then we look at ourselves and we say, look, there has to be someone who comes into this market like the information has in general technology, like CB Insights has in terms of analysis and broader technology, and who does this independent journalism plus independent research that people will pay for. And that's what we're doing at The Block. While all of our work is shared for free today, we will be introducing a paid product in Q1.
So do you want to talk about that product? How much can you tell me?
Yeah, so I'll give you the broad outline of it, but it will be heavy on a few different things. So number one, we will go much deeper in our research. And so some of the Lumascape style charts that you've seen about enterprise blockchain or stable coins, we'll dive deeper into research in those areas that will be actionable, right? For people who want to invest, who want to work in those areas, who want to understand the technology. Our analysis will go much deeper into looking at specific exchanges, looking at trade volumes and potential irregularities. I mean, just these are a variety of topics. Again, things that will influence how perhaps people might trade. Looking at projects much more in depth and looking at people much more in depth. Doing the things that the information does where they highlight deeply, like who are all the important people at organization X, Y, or Z, or protocol or foundation X, Y, or Z. Things like Crunchbase. So, John Biggs is working with us as editor currently, and he's incredible. I mean, he's the founder of Crunchbase. And so to have John giving us that guidance as we launch this premium paid product, and he's somebody who was working in crypto for over a year, prior to joining us in the last few weeks, is just such a massive shot in the arm for our efforts. And so we have one of the people who's sort of foremost in the world at launching one of these information research and people services, helping to guide our editorial team as we do that.
Right. So it all comes down to the team, right? You've identified you got to get the best people.
Yeah, it's the team. And I left out the journalism. So we will continue to break news. And we view investigative journalism, such as the great piece that Frank Chaparro wrote on Blockchain Terminal last week, as really important, because we want to share things that the general public and even potentially investors in the project aren't aware of. And we know for a fact that we have shown light in certain cases on certain things that folks have then, authorities have then said, hey, this is something that we need to investigate. And we think this is really important for the ecosystem because we have resources, and we believe that when we introduce our paid product, we will create such value for folks that we'll also have a business model to support something that I said earlier will separate the wheat from the chaff or the chaff in this industry.
So with those quite controversial stories, the investigative journalism side, like how much consideration do you have to give to the risk of publishing an article and how it might reflect on you? Or do you just stand up and say, look, we're journalists, we're reporting the facts, freedom of the press, etc.? Where are you positioned with that?
So we ensure that, the things that we put to print, and that we publish on theblockcrypto.com have been fact-checked, have been run by legal, are exceptionally well sourced, either on the record or with multiple sources off the record, that we have been privy to evidence that supports any factual claim that we make in those articles. And so what we put into those articles, we stand behind 100%. And the thing that is clear always in investigative journalism, and you've seen this with higher profile cases, that things like the Wall Street Journal covered Theranos, is it's always deny, and then the onion gets peeled back, and it's always a cost benefit analysis. So when you're saying, hey, should we peel off like all 8 layers of this, or should we just leave it with the two two layers we've peeled off, and get back to focusing on what the customer is looking for. And so in the cases where we've done some investigative journalism and we have some additional pieces coming over the next month, we're gonna basically write the piece and share the reasonable amount of information that we believe is essential to tell the story that the public needs to know, and that we're able to prove, but that doesn't compromise our ability to do all the other things that we do. Right? We can't be pouring 100% of our resources into investigative journalism, even if we literally get. I'm not kidding. Across our whole team, we get more than a dozen tips that are worth looking into about pretty significant potential, frauds and scams on a daily basis. It's really wild. I've literally never seen an ecosystem like this. And having spoken with journalists in other verticals and sort of telling them some of the tips that we're getting, not all of which are confidential, meaning people just share them freely. They say, wow, that's bonkers. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the ecosystem.
But how do you think we've got to this point then, where there is so much?
Yeah, so it was just a wild period of excess. I mean, the tens and tens of billions of dollars of capital that poured in was contributed by a number of unaccredited investors globally in a relatively unregulated way. It opened up a crazy Pandora's box. I mean, and not to mention the actual companies that are still operating, and I'm not going to name any specifically because again, we have some investigations going on. But you look, we had a piece just yesterday that like 1% of volume. This was just a small piece that we wrote, and we were basically repeating what a more detailed study had said. But like 1% of volume pairs of BTC on the top 25 pairs was legitimate volume, and more than 90% was wash trading or illegitimate volume. I mean, it's just bonkers. So I think it's too much money, not enough regulation, too many jurisdictions, whether it be state, federal, multiple countries, and these types of markets attract clearly the worst kind of people. Right? There's ability for money laundering. There's ability to exit scam. And I think people still, a lot of the crooks that you'll see, and I'm not talking about anybody that we've covered or anything that we've covered, because I'm not implying anything about anybody we've covered being crooks, but just in the ecosystem, the things that people do often that I read about and I see other folks covering, or that the SEC is actually, settling with people over. I mean, it's just dumb stuff. It's stuff that like you're obviously going to get caught for doing it. What the hell are you doing, people?
So it feels like, therefore, your business is going to transition quite a bit with the market. There's obviously so much to report about right now. We're going to have a complete wipeout of the market, a complete shakeout of the projects that can't ship, won't ship but to low quality and won't get users. All these projects will get wiped out, but at the same time, if we compare to the .com era, there will be another round of investment of sensible ideas that follow the regulatory framework. So I guess over time, the type of things you're going to report on are gradually going to be less of the scams and the bad things happening, and then you're going to start following all the good things that are happening.
Exactly. Like that is literally our dream. I didn't know that the market was going to drop 85% from the day I made the decision and wrote my day one Medium post in January when we were up 17,400 Bitcoin, and now where are we, 3,500? My wife definitely lets me know repeatedly that I should have sold more at the peak. I didn't, but you cover what there is to be covered. We don't write about price very often, but we do write about projects that are having trouble, and there's more of those than there are projects that are shining. That being said, we're going to have a great piece come out written by Arjun Balaji, our technical advisor, this week on the Lightning Network. We are waiting for Miles Snyder to write a piece, a positive one on EOS. And there are so many good developments in this ecosystem that we want to cover. And so I expect to see the pendulum swing back in 2019, but not entirely. In other words, there's going to be projects that run out of capital, projects that are folded into others. And then there's the ones that will continue. And you know, the best example of that, and the one that fascinates me the most, is obviously Ripple and XRP. So that is so Ripple is a company and XRP is a protocol that are unquestionably connected. Like there's no question, no doubt on earth. And so, we've spent time, Larry Cermak, our head analyst, has written about this. I had a tweet storm over Thanksgiving about this that was backed up by public facts. That story is going to remain. And we're not going to continue. So the way our coverage will change is we're not going to keep stating the Ripple security thing over and over again. We're not out here to beat dead horses. We're not out here to chase specific people or projects or prove points that we've proven or covered. But if there's new news, I want to see Ripple actually. I'd love to see them get product adoption. I've worked at companies similar to them with Google Wallet that launched from zero and now is Google Pay and is globally accepted. I worked on Venmo when it had 30,000 monthly active users. I mean, it was amazing to see that product launch and scale, to help Braintree grow, to found a company in Button that went from zero revenue to more than halfway to 100 million gross revenue. So it's something. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to see these folks succeed. The thing with Ripple, to get back to that example, is just, some of the mealy mouthing and changed narrative about the ties to the actual cryptocurrency protocol. If the company just existed itself without trying to force the token into the business model to prop up the treasury, which has become their actual business model, meaning selling XRP, I would be supportive, So I'm supportive as Ripple if they can improve upon Swift. But as the TransferWise CEO said, I really haven't seen that to date, he said.
Yeah, and also Swift aren't just going to let their business model be taken from underneath them.
Of course not. So I look at them as more like fintech than I do, Bitcoin, which could potentially be a store of value, censorship resistant, programmable money. But we can save that conversation for another day.
What do you make of the community around XRP? In that, one of the things I've noticed is I'm very suspicious of the bot activity, but I don't know if that's centrally controlled or if that's something that's just some very eager fans of XRP. But one thing I notice is the volume of XRP people who have XRP in their name, XRP logos on Twitter. They hammer Coinbase every time they make an announcement. They don't discuss any crypto outside of XRP. And if you actually dive into their little communities on their message boards, they're all just sharing each other's content in this kind of weird community.
Yeah. So look, it strikes me, again, I'm not a journalist and I'm not, an editorial person at the block. So I feel like I can say that it strikes me as suspicious. That being said, and I've noticed, and many folks like Jeff Goldberg, who almost obsessively talks about this publicly on Twitter, and is somebody who I've known for years, pre-crypto, pre him doing any of this, but seems to, the evidence he's presented is at least eyebrow raising on the coordination of some of these things. I personally, don't have any evidence that this is connected to Ripple or Ripple Corp, or that Ripple, is paying any of these folks. And I would never make that insinuation or accusation. But, it makes you wonder if someone is, right? Like, I don't know what's going on there is all I have to say. But you don't see behavior like this from any other crypto quote unquote community. You see people talking about the technology and the general level of like sophistication of the arguments of that particular army, and community versus literally any other one is, like I can't put a number on it. It's significantly lower and less sophisticated. So it's not even worth engaging at this point anymore. I've just made a policy on my personal account to just block engage.
Yeah, and do you know what? How do you separate what is the block and what is personal views? Twitter accounts tend to be personal.
It's really difficult. And I'm never going to get it to a point where 100% of people will agree with 100% of, where I draw the line. So, by the way, I think that's true of the block's coverage because, we even internally debate, how much should we say on our personal accounts? How much should we say on, the block account? And then what should we cover? We have lots of internal debate on what we should cover and how we should cover it and have different viewpoints. But basically, I think the rule, and I'm learning as I go, because I've historically been in more enterprise technology, which, by the way, was why it was so fun to kind of raise $2 million for this business over the summer, a business that I'd never done before. But our investors believed in this mission, knew I'd been in crypto since 2013 and was passionate about it. And then I'm a great recruiter and could recruit this world-class team to do this. But my personality and who I am and my passion is a big part of what makes this tick. And that's true of the rest of our team as well. Larry, Frank, Stephen, John Biggs, I took it one of the highest praise, or most literally one of the kindest things anybody has said to me in a long time is John Biggs, again, early TechCrunch, who's came up with Crunchbase and worked closely with Michael Arrington, said, hey, Dudas, man, you remind me of Michael Arrington in the early days, like the fire, and said a few other things. And I was excited, by that. I think, Michael was able to, and he's still in the game in a big way, in crypto, but, he was able to, I think, move the industry in a number of ways and in a positive light, in a positive direction, get it more visibility, make it ready for mainstream coverage. I'd like to do that as well for crypto, but I'd like to be the mainstream publication. And I think TechCrunch, they kind of ultimately were purchased and didn't necessarily realize their true financial potential. And I think we can learn from some of the things that happened there to do that, to do even better.
Next up, I talked to Mike more about crypto journalism and the future for the block. But before that, I have a message from my show sponsors, BlockFi. As you can probably tell, I'm a big fan of BlockFi, and while I'm super grateful for their long-term support of the show, it is a company I'd be interested in anyway, as they have a product. They're building value, and they are doing so many innovative things. I think BlockFi are a very important company for the future of Bitcoin, and they had that huge announcement before Christmas, where they announced they had received an additional $4 million in funding, which we used to expand the team and launch exciting new products, including a crypto savings account that earns interest and crypto-backed credit cards. I would highly recommend you check them out, you sign up to their newsletter, and keep an eye on their future projects. They are redefining the world of banking with crypto, and they are definitely worth a follow. If you are interested in a crypto-backed loan, well, BlockFi is the leading crypto to USD lender in the US, servicing 47 states with interest rates as low as 7.9%. BlockFi accepts Bitcoin, Ether, or Litecoin as collateral. Customers can be funded in USD or GUSD, which is Gemini's dollar-backed stablecoin, and you can go from application to funding in as little as 30 minutes. BlockFi is the best way to get USD funding without having to sell your crypto, and applying takes less than 2 minutes. If you visit blockfi.com/what Bitcoin did, you can learn more about using your crypto without selling. So tell me about the team then, because that is one of the most impressive things. You've recruited this all-star team, and every time someone new comes on, you're like, yeah, I've been reading your content already. So tell me about the team, who the key people are, what their roles are within the block, but also tell me about where the gaps are, who you're looking to get in the future, what kind of people.
So the key folks, my co-founder and CTO, Jake McGraw, is incredible. He and I worked together 10 years ago at the first startup that both he and I worked at in 08, 09. which was an ad tech startup. So my key rule here is the absolute best signal that somebody is going to be great to work with in an early stage company is that you know them and have worked with them before, or you know their work. So Jake McGraw is my co-founder, and he's incredible. So John Biggs, coming on as our editor, we parted ways with our founding editor, and John is incredible. He has a tremendous amount of experience, skill, relationships, can keep it calm and cool when it's just, I'm a very emotional and fiery person, as you know. And so he brings measure. But candidly, our strongest asset is the people doing the work. So it's Larry Cermak, our head analyst. It's Stephen Zhang, our head researcher. It's Frank Chaparro, who's our senior correspondent and came to us from Business Insider. So I had seen, and then Isabel Woodford, who just joined us, who'd worked at Reuters and is based in London. So those four are doing the work that is really making this company special. And what's so fascinating is that each one of them is under the age of 25, but knows more about this space, whether it be the technology, whether it be the people, whether it be the companies, than I do, right? My job is to kind of get to a sort of slightly below topical level knowledge about a lot of things, and then, help orchestrate what we cover, go out, sales and marketing, raise money, and lead the team. But these folks are world-class experts. And they've been so amazing that they helped attract Arjun Balaji, who is, I think, one of the top 5 people. We've been friends. I was leapt for joy when he agreed to join as technical advisor. He's giving us a decent amount of his time, and we'll be publishing some work. But the whole point is, great talent attracts great talent. We're now getting more contributor pieces, ideas, tips. And then last, but definitely not least, I hired a guy named Mike McCaffrey, who had spent 18 months working at Citibank as an investment banker. He was recommended to us by 2 investors, Bloomberg Beta. I love that Bloomberg's an investor in our business, and Blockchain Ventures, Ken Seif, who's an incredible investor, multiple funds, and just a wonderful man, former CEO and great advisor to us. But they both recommended Mike as chief of staff, and we've subsequently promoted him to director of operations and finance, as well as chief of staff. The guy's 24 going on 40, the maturity that he brings. So you need these heroes. And so the biggest thing I've learned, I don't recruit on Twitter. I don't recruit on LinkedIn. We don't even have to post jobs, because our network, the people we see, the talent basically comes to you if you're doing great stuff. And that's what's been so exciting. And these best people just rise to the challenge in an incredible way. So we're just looking for more of that. And frankly, it gives us what you would call a quote unquote arbitrage opportunity versus others. We compensate every single full-time person and on the team in equity, as well as fair value cash. So it's basically you have upside above and beyond. So that's something that we don't have to overpay. I bet, some of the other publications out there have to. We can pay these folks and give them upside. So it's an unfair advantage. And lastly, we have Stephen Pally, who's one of the best lawyers in the space, working on our behalf. And so that really, I developed a friendship with him, and he's really been an incredible asset to the team, because so much of what we do does require a legal review prior to publication.
Yeah, it's a great team. I'm a fan of every single one of them, every person you've just named. I think they're all amazing. One thing it seems to me as an outsider, and I could be wrong, but it feels like you don't really have any kind of huge hierarchy of structure. It feels like you probably have quite a flat structure, and you give your team a lot of freedom.
Exactly. So that I didn't actually answer the last part of your question, which is what are the gaps? So we are launching, as I mentioned, a paid product. And so the biggest thing, and I just posted this actually yesterday publicly, that we will hire between now and February when we launch is additional researchers and analysts. And there's some really, really exciting world-class people who we're talking to. And so we're going to hire more full-time folks and would love anybody interested in listening to apply on our site, as well as contributor pieces. And it's just the exposure that folks will get. They love it. They can get it on our site, where we're seeing now hundreds of thousands of monthly visits, as well as through our newsletter, which is read by just an insane who's who of the industry. And obviously, can't reveal names, but these are CEOs of Fortune 5, C-level folks of Fortune 500 companies. These are leaders of protocols, household names, investors, etc.
Another thing I've noticed, and I'm a big fan of, is the design of the website. It's very simple, it's very clean, it's very easy to use. It's a real joy, actually. And somebody who's come from a web design background, I don't like publisher websites normally. Usually they're either ugly or something like Mashable, which try to do something different, which I don't get along with. Your site's just really easy to use. It's a really nice chronological hierarchy of stories, which you can filter by Bitcoin, Ethereum. It's very, very simple. I'm guessing that was a key decision, right?
Absolutely. So the original idea was crypto simplified, and crypto simplified, and that's the tagline, that applies whether you're presenting exceptionally complex ideas or whether you're doing, blockchain 101. And so we were really lucky. So much of this comes down to relationships. I mean, you put yourself in a position to get lucky. But my co-founder, Chris Mattern of my former company, Button, and who I also worked with at Venmo, recommended an incredible firm called Charming Robot, who are world-class designers. They've worked with the Skim. They helped launch Skift, which is Rafat Ali's travel publication. They've worked with a number of other great folks who all endorsed them to us. And I knew Dan Macarone, the CEO, and Eric Bowie, the COO, for a while. And they did just a bang-up job. This is pre Jake coming on as our CTO. We wanted to build out the site, get it launched on WordPress. So you're going to see a lot of updates, but in terms of that clean, crypto simplified design, they did such a great job. And we wanted to be distinct and look different, and sort of that, snippet based or kind of block based design. And they helped with the name as well. It was certainly something that, I thought about in the shower and then kept thinking about at 3 a.m. Now we have to figure out how to get the domain name.
Somebody else got it.
Block.co. Block.com is like Chevy, I think. I don't think they'll be selling.
Right, okay. All right, so look, it's all going well. Readership's up. I saw you put the stats out. They're pretty impressive. You've got a great team. You've got products come in. Like, everything seems to be going well. So what are your main challenges, Mike? What's the stuff that's keeping you up at night? Yeah,
so as a CEO, you always have to mix a healthy dose of optimism and paranoia. So I'm most optimistic about the team, as we've talked about, and about the reception to what we're doing. At the same time, there are risks, right? We're largely pre-revenue. We do have revenue coming in. And we will start, by the way, running sponsorships. So from key partners, and those will be sponsored posts, clearly delineated, from brands that we have great respect. So high quality brands, not like ICOs that we wouldn't believe in or things like that, in January. So, hey, how is our audience going to respond to that would be a concern. Hopefully well, and we think well. And then, are we going to get that right mix? We have some more hiring to do over the next couple of months, as I mentioned, on the research analysis side. We believe we have the product people are going to like when we launch the paid product. The last thing I forgot is we're going to have like a Matt Levine from Bloomberg style, or a Ryan Selkis style column on a daily or every couple day basis. So that'll be behind the paywall. But will that product resonate? We think it will. And my basic thing is, I'm not going to name the price point now, but basically at the price point we're going at, if we help you make one good decision per year, you've more than paid for your subscription. And that's kind of the bar that we want to hit. And we want everybody to make 10x from what they read from us. So then the next thing is, well, does the market recover, right? So the market doesn't have to recover per se, but you need some volatility for folks to remain interested. I don't fear that because I'm kind of a true crypto believer, but I think there's a reasonable, logical question, right? But I think we're past that point just based on the developer activity I'm seeing through the downturn. The market changing next year, so we will go to market to raise one more round of capital, and I'd like to turn profitable on that raise. So I plan to raise a Series A. I plan to do that in sort of the late Q1 or Q2 timeframe, based on a really strong management team and a really strong editorial team and a product that will be, starting to generate some really good revenue, led by me, by Jake, our CTO, and by John Biggs, our editor-in-chief. And I think that's going to be a really compelling vertical media and information value proposition for investors, but always a risk as to whether you can raise. I mean, I've done it before, and I think we'll do it. And then, the last thing is just, can we keep our people, right? Can we keep them engaged as their star grows? Because I think it will be advantageous to everybody that we stick together. But this is a people business. I think we all make each other better. And as a leader, it's my job to put them all in a position to keep doing that. But scaling's hard, man. I mean, you've seen it. I'm sure been through it. And, I did buttons at my last company, over 100 people now. And it's like when you go from where we are, 10 to 25 is a huge jump, 25 to sort of 40. And after that, once you're above 40, it's just constant evolution. People are coming and going. I think we're a different kind of business where we don't necessarily need to get that large, but keeping the core intact is really critical and always the biggest risk.
Yeah, the most I ever got to was a full-time team of 35 and like a transient team of 5, so say 40. And what I noticed is, and I've had this twice actually, about 15 people, above that it starts to change because you can't be there holding hands and everyone making decisions together. That kind of united front kind of changes. But the biggest change I had was when we went over 30. It was almost like I had to let go. My job became to manage the people who manage the company. But also you have cliques form and groups form within the company. And politics has become something that's very hard to fight. It just naturally happens. So I'm sure you're prepared for it, Mike.
We are, but will be a challenge. And, we're already in 5 time zones with 10 people. And so it'll be interesting as we hire in Asia, for example. We have a reporter role that we have open there, and we have contributors from there. Joseph Young right now, who's a phenomenal contributor, who's written a couple pieces for us, and we'll have to grow and grow prudently. But the distributed global company, it's a new thing, and so we're looking at the folks who perhaps haven't done it as well, right, or have grown too fast, and you see Consensus cutting back. Now, Consensus has done, so I don't mean to pick on them. They've done some incredible things for the Ethereum ecosystem and for the crypto ecosystem at large, but grew too fast and then had to pull back, which can hurt folks. But by the way, that's I think positive for the rest of the ecosystem. We're talking to Consensus folks ourselves, and I think there's going to be landing places for that talent.
Yeah, I think I can imagine in a couple of years we're going to look back at 2018 and hopefully say, I'm glad that happened. It was needed. It was required. We needed that to kind of shake everything out so people focus on fundamentals again.
That's what we say about we make mistakes as a company, right, in different areas, whether it's resource planning, hiring, you name it. And as long as you can kind of do a retro, take those lessons and grow from them. I have this experience from previous businesses. And not dwell, right? Hey, if I was dwelling on the fact that I lost 80% of the notional Bitcoin value that I had at the beginning of the year, I drive myself nuts. I don't, right? I thought about it as play money, and I hedged by actually building a business that I think is going to be tremendously valuable in the long run.
Well, look, you saw my tweet, right?
Yeah. I didn't want to.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
You've got a lot of stuff going on. You're going to look at this in 5 years and say, hell. I really think, because I see you, the energy that you bring. Now it's my turn to say nice things about you. But I see the energy that you bring in all of your endeavors. And by the way, just like I know you don't agree with 100% of what I say publicly, I don't always agree with you. But I have such respect for your energy, your conviction, and your honesty and openness, because again, I'm the same way, very honest and open, and it's risky and it exposes vulnerability to other people that they can then point to later. But the bottom line is you're a doer. You're doing 3, 4, 5 things now, and you're going to be successful because I think you have good judgment. People are interested in what you do. You have good ideas, and you're thoughtful, and you're in, as far as I believe, the right market at the right time.
Yeah, there's a lot of luck there, but it was just on your point, right? You said you hedged. I wish I'd sold, and I got a phone call from the Guardian newspaper today because they wanted to talk about what happened, and they thought I was all depressed and miserable, and I said, no, you know what, I'm not. They asked if there were regrets, and I said regrets are stupid because every decision I've made at the time I thought it was the right one, right? So there's no point having regrets. Yeah. But like you, I hedged. I was like, this isn't going to go on forever. I'm going to build a podcast. I've got a sustainable income. I'm not broke. I haven't lost my house or anything. And actually, I think we'll look back and like if someone turned around to me and said, you could have all the money, but you wouldn't have the podcast, I wouldn't take it because, what would I be doing? So
you have this platform now. It's growing. This is how I feel, about the block as well. And so, bottom line, if you can take that positive approach, stay out of depression, which, I'm somebody, and I've said this publicly, who over periods of my life, I fight on a daily basis, sort of clinically, I forget the exact description, but sort of social anxiety disorder. And it's a challenge, and it impacts, how I engage with people. But I work day in and day out so that I can overcome it and be that outgoing person, which is so key to my business. So if you're resilient, even despite it being, hard and challenging day to day, and taking those setbacks, which, of course, as a startup CEO, you can imagine we've had setbacks. You revealed, the setbacks you've seen over the past year, and come out of it with that spirit, and then look at the things that you're lucky about. I mean, I tweet this recently, but I've got a beautiful family, a son and a daughter, a 4.5-year-old daughter, 1-year-old son, amazing wife. My parents are incredible, brother, my wife's family. I mean, it's awesome. So, feel very fortunate about all that. And that's the stuff that's important when I'm not tweeting.
Anxiety though, it's pretty rough, right?
It is, yeah. So I developed, in my early 20s and didn't know what it was until my mid 20s. It was most crippling when I didn't know what it was. I would literally, if I got up in front of an audience, I would literally break into a cold sweat, and then the anticipatory anxiety would become, very nerve wracking. And so then you start to avoid, and I've always been a social, outgoing person. And you're like, what the heck is this? But often it happens to that type of a personality. So, I've over the years managed it. I mean, it's been literally, I'm almost 40. And so I've been managing it since I was 26. It's been like 14 years. No fun, daily battle. Many other people have, that's what you would call kind of a mental, let's say a mental illness, much, in other aspects of my health, I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, I've had bouts of anxiety for 5 years, panic attacks, SVTs.
Yeah, I read about it. That's why I felt, comfortable and interested in chatting with you about it. Mine hasn't gotten to that point, but there was a period actually when I literally it was painful to fly because I associated it with, and then physical things again would manifest it. So It wouldn't be like a heart rate, but like sweating, and I'd get these weird things like leg cramps and all kinds of odd stuff. So, the brain is a powerful thing in positive ways and can be a powerful thing in negative ways. And I find when I talk to other people doing really exciting, interesting, on the edge things, many of them share these kind of unique things that they manage and that drive them to be better and let them sort of exist on the extremes, right, and the edges.
Yeah.
So I feel that is comforting, and that I know there's many other people out there. And again, like I've been successful. The most successful parts of my career have been while I've been managing that sort of drives me to kind of prove like hell, you know, I'm gonna win and win again.
Man, I get it. I've been there, been through the roughest times and the good times. I know what it's like. So, all right. Well, listen, look, this is really good stuff. But let's talk about next year, 2019. Give me your predictions, Mike. What do you think is going to happen?
So I think that this industry is going to return to a really positive builder mentality industry across all key segments. So we've seen the infrastructure being built on the institutional side in terms of, Fidelity and others, building out institutional products. I think we're going to start to see some really, really early, new consumer facing adoption. So endorsement from big companies like Starbucks, like Fidelity. I come from a world where I believe that's important, even though I know many of the, sort of early folks and libertarians would say, maximalists might say, of certain types would say, or crypto anarchists, I mean, not maximalists, would say, hey, this is bad. They're co-opting our technology and our money. I think it's necessary for mass adoption. So you're going to see broader adoption and usage of these technologies. And you're going to see more building without the hashtag build. You're not going to see people bragging about building. You're going to see some cool product announcements. I think people are going to follow the Lightning Labs of the world and realize that actually delivering product and then showing how the nodes are growing week over week and having people talk about it. Folks like Casa who are delivering products, folks like Ledger, folks like Nomics who just announced a raise today. Those are the people to follow. Folks like Rick Burton at Balance who keep trucking along and just mentioned yesterday that he was able to find a lead for his next round. So I'm excited to watch those builders, Julian from Unlock Protocol, and the protocols themselves. So even the projects that are delayed, I'm somebody who's interested in projects far beyond just Bitcoin, Ethereum. I was excited to hear Dfinity, say, hey, this is coming next. Even Hashgraph today talking about things in the future. So I think we're going to see a lot more things come, into reality. And then we're going to see some things come to a head, things that don't work, right? So we're going to see much more regulatory enforcement. And so projects are going to settle and go away. And I think that's a healthy thing. You're going to see projects make prudent decisions like Basis did to sort of shut down when they realized what they proposed isn't feasible. And I thought that team wound down in an exceptionally professional way and should be proud of themselves. And then, we're going to start to see, I think there will be a high profile just disintegration. I don't know what project it is, but I think, so Bitcoin Cash is sort of doing it to themselves, but, just a big, massive, highly valued project that, doesn't deliver. I'm not going to name names. I have some in mind that, kind of the value creators even more than it already has. And so that I'll kind of end with the notion of, I think you're going to see separation in 2019. Maybe I'm hoping and projecting here, but between high quality project price, you're going to see some drop, a lot of tokens drop to negative 99% of all time high. And yes, I do. I mean, it's hard to speak in these short term periods, and I'm not going to make any investment advice or price predictions. But, wherever Bitcoin sort of ends the year, I think, 12 months later, it's not going to go much lower than that. Or I'll say this, 2 to 3 years out, I see it being higher than where it is now.
Yeah, I'm with you.
In every metric, hash rate, activity on the network, transactions, consumer usage, and price.
And I don't know about you, I'm actually in some ways, I'm excited more than ever.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's what I should have said. So I don't think you're going to see a stop to the flow of people. I do think you're going to see more people entering into this ecosystem. And one of the reasons, by the way, is because I actually think, so it's important to consider crypto, and I just use that word as slang, but crypto in the context of the larger global economy. And so I think we're going to start to see some real trouble in the larger global economy. And that's going to lead to layoffs. You're going to see more people in technology looking for things to do. Google and Amazon continue to expand. They'll hoover up tons of talent. They're building campuses here in New York. But there's a lot of other companies that are going to bleed people. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see some of those folks like coming into this ecosystem and this asset class. And you'll start to see, I think, more. So the one thing that I'm unsure of, the one thing I want to see, just so people stop talking about it, is this goddamn ETF just getting approved or not. I'm sure Gabor has talked about this. Was he on your show talking about it? But
yeah, he was on a few weeks ago. And do you know what? He put out one tweet that's really interesting, right? And I can't remember the exact wording, but I'll find it and put it in the show notes. But he said something along the lines of that Coinbase is able to issue shitcoin after shitcoin to retail investors, whilst they are building a regulated product for institutional investors, and they can't get approval. I'm glad you brought that up. So please do interview my colleague Larry on an upcoming show, because he and I actually disagree fundamentally on this. So I think a Bitcoin ETF should be approved.
If you look at other assets that have been approved, when you look at market manipulation in those markets, I would argue, and Gabor would as well, that there's no more than there is, at least to be alleged in the Bitcoin market. And there's a whole host of other factors that they consider. But then the next question is, hey, was that tweet sort of responsible? I'm of the opinion, I really like him, and I'm the type of guy who tweets some things that people don't always necessarily think are proper. I thought it was fun. I think he just kind of called out the wrong company. Now, full disclosure, Coinbase is an investor in the block, very small, less than 0.3% of the company. They, I have a place near my heart for them. They got me into crypto. My first meeting in crypto was when I was at Braintree and met Coinbase. But I view them as a very credible, very secure exchange, and they've still only listed 10, 12 coins at most. Silly one to pick on is what I would say. And I think listing a token for trading is sort of very, very different than having it be an ETF available to unaccredited investors and available through traditional channels. So once you get that Bitcoin ETF approved, it then can start showing up, not for people who seek it out on Coinbase, but for people who might see that in their traditional accounts. So it is a big difference, and so it was just a weird analogy.
Okay, and what are your predictions for the block for next year?
So my prediction for the block is that when you look at us 5 years from now, we are going to be the absolute standard in the crypto ecosystem in terms of the brand that people think of when they think of media, information, you name it, right? So like Bloomberg is to traditional financial markets, people will think of the block as that to crypto. And I don't think we'll talk about it as crypto then. I believe it will be digital assets. And so it will include things like tokenized securities. It will include some of the things that people today classify as fintech. I think fintech as a word starts to go away, and we'll start to talk more about digital assets and things of that nature. And I have every intention to make us sort of the preeminent media and information brand. Multimedia, by the way, so we'll expand into other media in this world. And then lastly, I think media and information companies have not done a good job of creating communities. So I think within the crypto ecosystem in particular, just like Twitch has done in video gaming, I think people love Telegram, they love Slack and the crypto ecosystem to communicate with one another, and they learn in that way. So we are going to, over the next few years, build in an element of communication and community. LinkedIn will not exist in this ecosystem. And so we can act as a sort of replacement for them. And it's easy to say that. We have a pretty interesting plan on how we will get there.
Oh, amazing. And who's going to win the Premier League?
Liverpool, I would say by 3 points at the end.
I think it's going to be close. That's all I can say. I think it's going to be tight. It's going to be close.
Yeah, I'm not a lifelong fan like you are. I'm a 6-year fan. So
yeah, that's enough. Well, if you ever get over here, Mike, and we'll get us tickets, I'll take us to a game.
Yeah, we tried. We tried the last time. I ended up going to see Liverpool versus Palace, and it was an absolute blast. So,
Was that at Palace?
what's that?
Was that at Palace?
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't wear any gear.
I mean, that's a great ground. That ground is great. It's a noisy ground.
Oh my goodness. I did cheer at the whistle 2-0, and the folks around me, season ticket holders, not pleased, told me to keep it down. I was an American fan. You're not allowed to clap for your team when they win unless you're in the visitors supporters area, I guess.
Yeah, so I know the chairman because he used to be a client of mine. We used to do the web work and digital work for Crystal Palace. So I got to know Parish, and he invited me to the game where we were 3-3 at, when we missed out on winning the league. What a game. All right, well, listen, look, Mike, this has been great. I knew it would be. Tell everyone how they can follow the block and how they can follow you and who you want to hear from.
Of course. So you can find us at www.theblockcrypto.com. We're at __ on Twitter. We got to fix that. I'm at MDUDAS on Twitter. Love to engage. I have open DMs. We have open DMs for the block. Please communicate with us. We're looking for world-class researchers to work with us, world-class analysts and world-class journalists who have a deep, deep interest in the crypto ecosystem. And we're always looking for tips. So if you have an interesting story that you'd either like to write as a contributor yourself, or a tip that you want to share with us, either anonymously or under your identity, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
All right, man. That was cool. Thanks a lot, Mike.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Okay, so what did you make of that? Did you enjoy that interview with Mike? Are you following the block? Have you checked out any of their reporting? Certainly, some of their work is full on, but it is a breath of fresh air for someone to come into the space, have a new service which doesn't worry about conflicts of interest, doesn't worry about being part of a bigger group, and can just go out there and say it how it is. So I give a massive amount of credit to the block and Mike for the work they're doing. I was also interested to learn about how they're going to monetize their product. I think their website is beautiful, but I couldn't really see how they were going to have advertising on there. It was great to hear from Mike from their plans. I think the subscription service sounds awesome, probably something I will almost certainly sign up to. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the interview. Remember to check out the show notes. There's a whole bunch more you can find out about the block there. Just a couple of updates from me. There's been a load of interest in my side gig course, which has come in. I think I've had like 400 people register, which is crazy. So that's going to launch in February when I get back from Vegas and San Francisco. And speaking of that, I'm heading out to the States in about 2 weeks. I'm going to Tone Vase Conference, as I said, in Vegas. I'm going to be competing in this poker tournament, hopefully catching up with a few Bitcoin people, should be fun. And I'm going to be recording a bunch of interviews there and also in San Francisco. I'll also be posting my Bitcoin 10-year State of the Nation series at the start of February, which will be a week of interviews looking at the past decade of Bitcoin and what we can expect in the next 10 years. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, so if you want to support the show, I say this every week, but there's a whole bunch of things you can do. Even just leaving me a review on iTunes helps. So how can you help? Well, firstly, you can just listen to the ads. I know it might seem annoying. I know you might want to get straight on to the interview and skip past that, but if nobody listens to the advertisers, then I won't have any advertisers, and then the podcast will die, and then I'll end up homeless and have no money, and my children will be taken away from me. So make sure you listen to the adverts. Also, you can become a patron. Head over to patreon.com/whatbitcoindid. I've got 67 now. If you don't like the ads, you can pay $5. You get each show early, all the ads removed, all my nonsense talking at the start and finish, all gone. You just get a raw interview. So make sure you go and check that out. If you don't want to use Patreon, but you want to subscribe, I do allow people to subscribe by Bitcoin. I've had a couple of people do that. Just drop me an email. I'll give you an address to send it to, and I can add you onto the distribution list for this. I've got a crypto tip jar. I wasn't really interested in doing one, but somebody told me to do it because they wanted to make a tip. I'm now getting like $300 a month for that. You can also become a show sponsor. If you're interested in doing this, then please email me on hello@whatbitcoindid.com. Downloads are growing. Had a slight dip in December, which was expected with Christmas, but I'm expecting January to be back up. Hopefully a record month, which should be cool. You can leave me a review on iTunes, or you can click on the subscribe button. Both help with my rankings in iTunes. You can follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Medium. I'm on Instagram. I'm at What Bitcoin Did on everything. Or my personal Twitter is at Peter McCormack. You can check out my website. That's www.whatbitcoindid.com. You can sign up to my newsletter there, and you can share the show out with your friends and family. Okay, got a couple of great interviews coming up next week. On Tuesday, I've got my interview with John Carvalho discussing defending Bitcoin. That's a really great interview, probably one of the best I've recorded. And next Friday, I have an interview with Tone Vase coming out, which I'm going to record today. Hopefully that'll be another monster interview. Okay, hope you have a great weekend. If you want to reach out to me, my email address is hello@whatbitcoindid.com, and I look forward to hearing from you.